What else don't you see? No worship. You don't see scripture being mentioned, thus saith this, thus saith that. You don't see God directly speaking to somebody. The Lord God spoke unto somebody. You don't see any of that in here. The only spiritual thing you actually see in this book is one religious aspect. And what is that? Fasting. You get to see the word fasting used once. So you don't see God, you don't see prayer, you don't see the reading of the scriptures. It's not like reading Nehemiah where they bring the book, they read the book, they're behind a pulpit of wood and all that. You see very little of that. But what do you really see when you're looking at the book of Esther? You may not see the name God, you may not see the word Lord, you may not see Jehovah, you may not see all those things physically written out, but you can't read the book of Esther without seeing God. He's clearly there. And God's hand of providence is throughout this book. And really that's the theme. Do you believe that God is still working in the affairs of men? Do you believe that God can fix what ails this country? I do. Do you believe that God can change the hearts of people? I do. Do you believe God can use even his enemies to promote his goodness? I do. And so we're going to see this enemy of the Jews get promoted. We're going to see how these things play out, and we're going to learn some things about Haman, and we're going to talk through it. So let's go through it. Matthew Henry says, I wonder what the king saw in man that was commendable or meritorious. It is plain that he was not a man of honor or justice, of any true courage or steady conduct, but proud and passionate and revengeful. Yet he was promoted and caressed, and there was none as great as he. Princes' darlings are not always worthies. People get promoted to places that don't deserve it. If you ever worked with somebody who didn't deserve to get promoted at a workplace you were at, sometimes they become President of the United States of America. Sometimes they get put up into political appointments that are not good. Do you think the American president in any given administration chooses the best for any given role? What do they pick? They pick political appointments for political reasons. And they're not picking the highest qualified, the most qualified. Tom Barrett, the former mayor, maybe still mayor, I'm not sure if he's gone yet, of Milwaukee, the city of Milwaukee, he's actually been called up to be the ambassador of Luxembourg. By the way, I'm not sure exactly why you need an ambassador to Luxembourg, but why not? Now, do you think it's because of Tom Barrett's vast knowledge and his skilled diplomacy in all things that are related to Luxembourg? Or do you think it was because he did something nice for Mr. Biden at some point? And they're political appointments. And you say, yes, it's Biden, but it'll be the next one or the one after that. They make political appointments. And so there's some political reason why Haman is going to get lifted up, and it's not because Haman is so wonderful. So we're going to read the first 6 verses of Esther chapter 3. Here it is. After these things did Ahasuerus promote Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, and advanced him, and set his seat above all the princes that were with him. And all the king's servants that were in the king's gate bowed and reverenced Haman, for the king had so commanded concerning him. But Mordecai bowed not, nor did him reverence. Then the king's servants, which were in the king's gate, said unto Mordecai, Why transgressest thou the king's commandments? Now it came to pass, when they spake daily unto him, that he hearkened not unto them, that they told Haman, to see whether Mordecai's matter would stand. For he had told them that he was a Jew. And when Haman saw that Mordecai bowed not, nor did him reverence, then was Haman full of wrath. And he thought scorn to lay hands on Mordecai alone, For they had showed him the people of Mordecai, wherefore Haman sought to destroy all the Jews that were throughout the whole kingdom of Ahasuerus, even the people of Mordecai. So Haman, he's elevated. He's brought forth. Now, when it says after these things, what are they talking about? What are the after these things? The end of chapter 2. And what happened at the end of chapter 2? Pat. Yeah, and then they get hung on a tree, which could have been an impalement, as we talked about last week, but not a real pleasant event. So all those things happen after that. So let's talk about Haman. Haman's promoted to the highest position by Ahasuerus. This occurred after those things, which Mordecai saved the king. It's reasonable to suppose that Mordecai expected a reward for his work on behalf of the king, but no reward was given then, possibly because of some bureaucratic bungle. Later, this neglect appalled and surprised the king. Have you ever worked really hard for something and didn't get rewarded for it? I know I have. Now, I can't tell you what that was because it doesn't happen very frequently, but there are some moments in life where you've worked really, really hard at work and then you get ignored, and it can be really frustrating, right? So here in this situation, Mordecai does the right thing, but for some reason, some quirky, odd reason, it's ignored. But it's not completely ignored, because what happened at the end of that event, at the end of chapter 2, there's something noted there. He doesn't get rewarded, but something's noted about the event. It's written in the Chronicle of the Kings. So we know that there's at least some sort of record where somebody took pen to paper and then put it somewhere and it got filed away. Now, why is that important? Because the right moment, the right information is going to come out, and if he was rewarded too early for that, maybe it wouldn't have had the impact. But here, lo and behold, as the narrative is set forth, you get to see that Mordecai does the right thing. It's recorded and promptly forgotten about. In the meantime, Haman is elevated. Because Haman was an Agagite, some have supposed that he was the descendant of Agag, the king of the Amalekites, and the Agagite, an Amalekite of the royal seat of the nation, whose kings were successively called Agag. All the princes gave him first place and seat, which was next to the king. So we're going to learn a few things here. There's a couple lessons to be learned about Haman. First of all, the wicked man in prosperity. The wicked man in prosperity. Haman is typical. He's in a long line of skillful plotting, rising above the heads of superior men. In this world, rewards are not rightly administered. Push and tack, get the prize. Do all sorts of bad people get to cut in front? Do we reward bad behavior in our country? Oh yeah, sure we do. We reward all sorts of bad behavior. Look at, I don't know why I find it fascinating. I like reading the books of billionaires. Obviously not because I'm going to be one. Well, maybe I will with inflation. I might be a billionaire by the end of the year. You never know. But if you read the biography of Jeff Bezos, if you read a biography of Elon Musk, if you read the biography of Steve Jobs, those guys were not good or kind people. Read about the early years of Silicon Valley. There was a movie in the 90s. I'm not recommending it. I just remember watching it many years ago. And at that time, they had a movie called The Pirates of Silicon Valley. They were stealing technology from each other. They were taking from one another, anything it took to get to the top. Xerox was the one that actually had the graphic user interface. And you guys know what that is, right? Everyone knows what a graphic user interface is, right? You guys know. They know. They probably don't. Anyway, but a graphic user interface is that Windows model that we use today, right? Where you can open up a window on your computer. Apple didn't have the rights to that. They took it from Xerox. They didn't know what they had. And so you get to see that all sorts of people will figure out ways to jump up in life. Do you ever wring your hands at the bad people who get elevated? I do. Bad people get elevated all the time. That's part of life. Haman is typical. Next, the prosperous wicked man is surrounded by fawning sycophants. There's always someone being the cheerleader for bad people. There's always someone who's going to be there. And so when we get to see at the end of chapter 2, and the king's servants that were in the gates bowed and reverenced Haman, for the king had so commanded concerning him, there's always people looking to bow and to reverence it. Now, it's a little atypical in our culture. We don't bow to other people. I don't bow to Esther. Oh, Esther. Esther's like, the bald head, I don't want to see it. But I don't bow to anybody. I don't. When you see an American president, I remember George W. Bush holding the hands with some Arab right after 9/11. I was like, man, that's really weird. Do you remember that, Ken? I mean, it was weird. And then you get to see Mr. Obama kept bowing to people, foreign leaders. And you know what I was thinking to myself when I saw that? We're Americans. We don't bow to anybody. We don't bow to anybody. We don't have a king. We don't have royalty. That's why I don't specifically care about the English royal family, because 1776. And we just don't do that here. We're Americans. Secondly, and more importantly, we're Christians. We don't bow to man. We bow to God. We worship God. But here in this situation, it was normal for that culture. We're going to bow and show reverence to Haman, and the king commanded it, and there was fawning sycophants. Oh, Haman, you're the best dressed, you're the best looking, you're the most wonderful. Now, do you think Haman liked that? Do you like being told how wonderful you are from time to time? I do. I want to be told how great I am. It's wonderful. During the 8 o'clock service, I don't think the guy's listening. Some guy called, wanted something from us. He's not and I go, I'm sorry, we can't help you. He did not give me encouraging words as he hung up. I just want to let you know that. He did not tell me how wonderful I was, and I was hurt. I was hurt to my soul. So, Bob, I need you to give me some praise later, okay? Just tell me how wonderful I am later. I like hearing praise. Kids like hearing praise. We like hearing praise. But we hear it fractionally. We hear it partially. But when you're in that role and you're told how wonderful you are all the time, do you think that can get addicting? It's the emperor has no clothes, and we know the story there, right? People like being told how wonderful they are. And in this circumstance, you get to see that he had people fawning over him. 3, the prosperous wicked man is surrounded by meddling sycophants. Even admirers may be too influential. If Haman had known and seen all, he might have prayed, save me from my friends. If Haman knew the end, do you think Haman would have had a different perspective? Your friends are not always good. I know we got some teenagers here, but I just want to sit down with them, and I want to say, teenager, pick better friends. And then I see the 20-year-old. You want to know what I want to tell the 20-year-old? Pick better friends. And then I want to say to the 25-year-old, pick better friends. You know, our friends influence us no matter what the age is. Who you're around makes a difference. It does not matter if you're 10 or 20 or 30 or 40 or 50. Water finds its own level. People are influenced by each other. Like Mrs. King and Mrs. Kaufman, they're troublemakers. I see them right over there already talking and gabbing, interrupting my Sunday school. I'm going to put a mark on the board if you guys continue to do it. Out! Anyway, but people make a difference, and they can make or break you. The people that are around you can make or break you. And when you see, do you think Haman was affected by his friends? Yeah. And what are they doing? They're rats, and they're ratting out other people. That's what they're looking to do. I am not much of a rat. I do not like ratting out other people. It's just my disposition. So what I'm seeing here is that they're looking, they see that Mordecai is knocking about, and what are they doing? They're looking to rat him out. And it ends up being Haman's fall is because he's got a bunch of bad counselors in his life, including his own wife that we'll see later. So he's surrounded by bad people, meddling people. 4, the prosperous wicked man finds that false greatness brings trouble. The greatness is false, which and is not the outcome of goodness. The course of wicked prosperity cannot run smooth. Haman meets with the checking and detecting Mordecai. So it's all a false front. It's all going to fall apart. If you build your life on lies and manipulation, eventually that house of cards falls apart. It's going to come apart. It's going to break down. 5, the prosperous wicked man may learn that an unrestrained nature brings trouble. Haman was intoxicated with his greatness. He was so full of wrath. Wrath is cruel both to the subject and the object. I'm going to get back. I'm going to keep moving here, but I want to address that in a moment. The prosperous wicked man is unwittingly plots his own downfall. Haman's wrath led him to dangerous extremes. And we're going to see he's going to create this massive gallows for Mordecai in just a few chapters, and he thinks he's got Mordecai on the ropes. He thinks he's got the Jews destroyed, and those gallows are going to be what ends up getting him. Prosperity has its drawbacks. You know, the song, "If I Were a Rich Man," "Oh Lord, you've made many, many poor people. It's no shame to be poor, but it's no great honor either," right? And I don't desire to be poor, but being too prosperous has its problems too, doesn't it? When people say, well, if I had $1 billion, do you know what I'd do with it? You'd probably get corrupted a lot easier than you think. And if you were given $1 billion, you wouldn't spend it nearly as wisely as the person who's had to work for it. Proverbs 16:19 says, "Better it is to be of a humble spirit with the lowly than to divide the spoils with the proud." Our greatest troubles often spring from our own depraved natures. Think about those who can't be told no. I joke and I say, I tell young people this, pray your children are just a little bit ugly. It's a lot easier just to be a little bit ugly in life. Someone's going to tell me no. I don't get to walk in somewhere and walk into a shop and they're like, "What can we do for you, Mr. Longsine?" "Well, let me tell you what you can do," and flop my hair over and my good looks and all that. My good looks don't get me very far. I did not hear an amen. I am so thrilled. I even left it out there. My good looks don't get me very far. My cash doesn't get me very far. I mean, I can be a big-time spender at St. Vinnie de Paul's. I can crush it there on Dollar Day. But I don't have the looks, and I don't have the cash, and I don't have the fame. When I walk throughout the city of Oshkosh, if I were to walk into Pick and Save or, well, maybe Walmart, they kind of think I'm a celebrity, but Target or anything, they're not going, "Oh, did you see it? It's Jared Longsine. Get him. We'll give him stuff. We'll give him the whole store. Will you sign this?" No one asked for my autographs. No one asked for my time. I'm ugly, I'm poor, and no one knows who I am. And life is so much easier. Life is so much easier being me. When you actually have some sort of influence and fame, look how much it messes you up. Prime example number 1, Elvis Presley. Do you know how weird he was at the end? Fame ruined him. Number 2, Michael Jackson. Proving in America is the only country you can be born a poor black boy and die a rich white woman. And fame has a way of messing up people. The ability to have people not say no to me. I have people say no to me all the time. Even my own kids say no to me. It may not be in their best interest, and they may suffer for a while, but people tell me no all the time. But when you're Haman, and you're second in command, and you walk around and you say jump, and other people say how high, can that be addicting? Can that be addicting? And so I'm saying, people pray, they want to have more money, they want to make some, and I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with making money. There's nothing wrong with being a good-looking person. There's nothing wrong with having some sort of notoriety. But it certainly comes with pitfalls too, doesn't it? It certainly comes with its struggles. And so here you get to see Haman. He's someone who's not a good person. He's someone who has people fawning over him, who's got bad friends, who's got a false facade of how great he is. He's intoxicated with his power, and he's got these plans which he's developing that he thinks he's going to set up the world for himself. And let me tell you, it has drawbacks, and our greatest problem often springs from our own depraved nature. We are broken people. I've seen the enemy, and the enemy is me. When I look in the mirror, the biggest problem I have is me. People blame the devil. People blame their parents. People blame everything around them. But our biggest problem is the one we see in the mirror every day. It's us. And here is this guy. He's trying to weave all these things together, and he's going to get himself in trouble. So let's actually move forward into the narrative here. Haman's promotion meant that other nobles had to kneel down before him. Mordecai says no. Now, the question is, did Mordecai say no, he wasn't going to do it because he was a Jew, or was he using it as an excuse? Now, my paper says, well, it's because he was just using it as an excuse. Before I was a Christian, when I worked at a credit union, if someone came into the credit union all hot and bothered and would start cursing at me and using the Lord's name in vain, I would say, please don't curse me. I'm a Christian and I don't appreciate that language. The great irony of that, I wasn't a Christian, Ken. I was using it as leverage because I wasn't going to put up with cursing. And I wanted to control the situation. And I knew the way to control the situation was to calm him down. And the way I controlled it was, I'm a Christian. I don't need to hear that. And they go, oh, I'm sorry. And I'd be like, got him. And so Mordecai, it comes out that he's a Jew. And here our boy Haman, he ends up being full of wrath, and he doesn't like that. And so not only is he mad at Mordecai, he's mad at all of Mordecai's people. Have you ever grouped someone together? I have grouped entire groupings of people based on 2 or 3 people. They're all bad. I met one bad one of those. We actually heard of someone saying, a guy who's been attending here recently, and he said his previous church told him how bad Wildwood was, but now that he's been going here, it's not so bad. Do we ever all get lumped into the whole group? We got Pat Hunter, we got Tori Mitchell, we got Tino Gropey, we got Myrna Kaufman, we got all sorts of people here that makes up the church, and some of us are better than others. And some of us mistreat people at times. But other people treat other people golden and wonderful and terrific. And the great thing about being in a church like ours is once you're a member here, you can serve. That's a great thing, isn't it? And so we're comprised of people and all that. But when Haman saw that Mordecai wouldn't bow, that was not tolerated. And he was going to use a heavy hand and not just kill Mordecai. He was going to extinguish the entire Jewish population. And so God has a plan for the Jews, doesn't he? Does God have a plan for the Jewish nation? The answer is yes. He does have a plan for the Jewish nation. So if Mordecai and Haman, they have a disagreement, and Haman says, I'm going to kill all the Jews. All the Jews, I'm going to kill them all. Is that actually going to happen if God doesn't let it happen? No. So God's going to thwart Haman's plan. By the way, can the devil destroy the church? Can the government destroy the church? What's more important, the White House or the church house? And here we sit today and we kind of quake. What's the government going to do to us? What is going to happen in this world? Does God have a plan for churches like ours in this world? I 100% believe it. And God's going to have a plan for the church all the way up to when he raptures the church home and there's no more Holy Spirit. But there's going to be great power within the churches up until that time. I believe it. I believe it. I believe the local church is God's institution for propagating the gospel. It's his way of managing Scripture and giving it out to people. And back then, the Jewish people, that's God's covenant to people. No Haman can destroy all the Jewish people. And Adolf Hitler couldn't do it, and Haman couldn't do it. And God has a plan for his Jewish people, just as God has a plan for his people in his church. All right, verse 7. In the first month, that is, the month Nisan, in the 12th year of King Ahasuerus, they cast pur. That is the lot before Haman from day to day, and from month to month, to the 12th month. That is the month of Adar. So the author includes a seemingly obscure account by recording that Haman, using pur, which is lot, to decide when the Jews should be killed. The original readers of the book would have understood that God was working to protect his people even in the timing of the events. As things worked out, the Jews had almost a year to which to prepare themselves for the conflict with the enemies. A little more than 4 years had gone by since Esther had become the queen, and on the first day of the month in the year in Nisan, at the beginning of Ahasuerus' 12th year, it was cast out to select a day in a month. Haman, along with many of the people in the Persian Empire, was extremely superstitious. The Persian religious system stressed fate and choice, and so we get to see God already prepared a means of delivering his people from Haman's plot. The month he chose was the 12th month, almost a year later, and the day, stated later, was the 13th of the month. So pretty interesting how that'll come together. Verses 8 through 9, and Haman said unto King Ahasuerus, there is certain people scattered abroad and dispersed among the people in all the provinces of thy kingdom, and their laws are diverse from all people. Neither keep they the king's laws. Therefore it is not for the king's profit to suffer them. If it please the king, let it be written that they may be destroyed. And I will pay 10,000 talents of silver to the hands of those that have charge of the businesses to bring it into the king's treasuries. So Haman goes to the king. He accuses the Jews of disobeying the king's laws. What evidence does he have? None. Does it matter? No. Do you know your enemy will lie about you? Don't be shocked when your enemy lies about you. I mean, people are like, can you believe they lied about me? Like, yes, I can believe that. That's what makes them the enemy, because they're liars, just like their father, the devil. So lo and behold, you get to see that. Now, they're talking 10,000 talents of silver, weighs about 750,000 pounds, which is $259 billion worth, $1 million worth of September of 2021. An enormous amount worth millions of dollars in present-day currency. That was a staggering sum which Haman was willing to pay. Possibly this huge sum made the king suspicious of Haman. Surely he could not have acquired that much money without being crooked. At the time, the Persians used silver as a monetary standard, which is suggested by some, and he intended to repay himself out of the spoils of the Jew. Really, what Haman was looking to do was make an investment. He was willing to gamble because he hated the Jews, but he was going to get his pound of flesh out of the Jewish people. He was going to get it out of their monies. So verses 10, 11, and the king took his ring from his hand and gave it to Haman. And what is he going to do here? He's going to say unto Haman, he says, he's given unto thee and the people also to do with him as is good. So he's going to give this ring to him, this signet to Haman and to the Jew, and he's going to put this proclamation out in the king's names. And 5 times in the book of Esther, Haman is called the Jews' enemy. And so the king noted that Haman could do with the people as he pleased. Wow, that's an awful amount of power he just gave to somebody. Which also showed you how little Ahasuerus actually valued life. Little did the king realize that Esther was a Jewess and would be included in his hideous plan. So to wrap up this is when the king's scribes called on the 13th day of the first month. There was written according to all that Haman commanded unto the king's lieutenants and the governors, and were over every province, and to the rulers over every people of every province, according to the writing thereof, and to every people after their language. In the name of Ahasuerus was it written and sealed with the king's ring. It's a lot of people and a lot of languages, and it's on purpose, right? There's no mistaking that this information is getting out. And the letters were sent by post unto all the king's provinces to destroy and to kill and to cause to perish all Jews, both young and old, little children, women, in one day, even upon the 13th day of the 12th month, which is the month of Adar, and to take spoils of them for a prey. A copy of the writing for the commandment was given to every province, was published unto all people, and that they should be ready against that day. The post went out, being hastened by the king's commandment, and the decree was given in Shushan the palace, and the king and Haman sat down to drink, but the city of Shushan was perplexed. So they're going to have all this stuff published. They got it all out there. It's interesting that the king and Haman sat down to drink. Almost celebratory. Sick thing, isn't it? The word perplexed means to be confused, to mill around, wander aimlessly. It indicates a confused state of mind because of not knowing what to do. And so here, these people, they were perplexed. They were confused. The Jews had an enemy in Shushan, but the bulk of its inhabitants were Persians and would likely sympathize with them. They might also have the widespread feeling among the people and other nationalities that the president now set a dangerous tone. Generally, the people of the capital approved and applauded whatever the great king did, but now they're looking around and they see it's rather unfair. Do you have neighbors who live differently than you? No. You know, we live in a country with white and black and purple and all this, and we got different religions and all that, and just because someone's Catholic doesn't mean they're not a good neighbor, nor do you want them exterminated. Just because someone's Lutheran, just because someone's even Muslim, you don't want them exterminated. You live with these people, and if the government were to decree that they're going to destroy a whole people, hopefully that would be disconcerting among you. And in this case, it's going to be disconcerting among these people, but the king's the king, and they're going to manage with it. Next chapter, we're going to see Mordecai confronting Esther, and at the pinnacle of the conversation, it's going to be for such a time as this. So we're going to end there. I'm already over time. Brother Phil's going to come up, and we're going to sing a song. We're going to sing Open My Eyes That I May See, hymn number 163 in the hymn book. We'll have you stand, and Brother Phil will make his way to that. Thank you for allowing me to go over time.
Open my eyes that I may see glimpses of truth thou hast for me. Place in my hands the wonderful key that shall unclasp and set me free. Silently now I wait for thee, ready, my God, thy will to see. Open my eyes, illumine me, Spirit divine. Open my ears that I may hear voices of truth thou sendest near. And while the wave notes fall on my ear, everything false will disappear. Silently now I wait for thee, ready, my God, I will to see. Open my eyes, illumine me, Spirit divine. Open my mouth and let me bear gladly the warm truth everywhere. Open my heart and let me prepare love with thy children thus to share. Silently now I wait for thee, ready, my God, thy will to see. Open my eyes, illumine me, Spirit divine. Thank you. You are dismissed.